Hello, folks. Welcome to another episode of Wu Says, where we get real about the US, China, everywhere and everything in between. Two superpowers, it's one global story. This week, we're talking money, or more precisely, the power behind money. The US dollar has long ruled global finance, but could its reign be nearing the end? And could the Chinese Yuan be the one to dethrone the dollar? I'm Melisa, Idris, and joining me here on the show is Professor Wu Wing Thye. He's here to unpack and explore this with us because he has been studying US-China relations long before tariffs became headline news. So, Prof. Wu, let's talk about the dominance of the US dollar in the global system. Does it still reign supreme, and how likely is it that the yuan could dethrone it?
Well, one thing for sure, the international status of a currency does not last forever, because we can see it that in the 19th century, the international currency of choice for trading was the British pound. And the pound was so widely used that it was the most convenient instrument to settle transactions between countries whose home currencies was not the pound. Like, for example, when the Mexicans trade with the Filipinos, they would use the pound to settle the deal between them.
Right.
But that disappeared pretty much after World War II. And why? The reason is because by, let's say, 1914, at the start of World War I, the US economy was more than twice that of the United Kingdom. But it enjoyed the advantage of what we call economies of scale. Economies of scale means that the cost of doing something goes down when the number of times you do it increases.
Right.
In other words, if you produce 100 billion widgets, the cost is even lower if you produce 1,000 million
Exactly.
widget.
Yeah.
Okay, so that the cost goes down with scale. So even though the dollar was even the U.S. economy was a lot larger than the United Kingdom, which means that U.S. trade volume was larger than UK trade volume, the currency was still the pound. But by 1930 or so, the US was like 5 times bigger than the UK economy.
Wow.
So there was so much trade was in with the United States that people just found it easier to switch over to the US dollar. Now, clearly, to be in the academic literature, what makes an international currency? There are 3 clear things. One is that you must be able to buy and sell the currency easily, which means that the country has an open capital account. Money can come in, money can go out, and is easily changeable. The second one is that the financial market of that currency has to be pretty sophisticated. In other words, in addition to, if you do not want to hold the paper money, you can hold bonds denominated in that money. You can buy insurance, and the insurance premium is denominated in that currency.
Right.
And you can buy stocks that is denominated in currency. So the market has to be sophisticated. The third condition is the market has to be safe. In other words, if you get into a commercial dispute, the courts in that country are objective. They rule it will be fair and speedy.
Okay.
So the judiciary system is important. And the final condition is the inflation mustn't be too high, because if inflation is high, then the money is eroded. Nobody wants to hold it. On that criteria, the Danish kroner, the Swedish krona are also international currencies.
Right.
But they are not of the same status as the dollar. Why? Because the volume of trade that Denmark and Sweden is much smaller than the US. Whereas China the Chinese economy, if it realizes its full potential, will be 3 times the size of the US economy. Because right now, Chinese GNP is roughly 1/3, GDP per capita. GDP per capita is roughly 1/3 that of the US. So if the Chinese are able to catch up with technological upgrading, they would be just as rich as the Americans. So that means their potential is 3-4. When they reach that, then the amount of trade done by China will be so much greater than the United States. So there is this inevitability about it. But however, right now, the Chinese currency cannot, so the most fundamental condition is China must continue to grow. If it shows any sign of not reaching its potential, it will not become big enough to matter. And now, besides that, China must open its capital account. But then they don't, because they are very much afraid of speculative flows in destabilizing their financial system. Just like the Asian financial crisis. Why did we experience a crisis? There was a panic. People ran out of the Malaysian ringgit, and the Malaysian stock market collapsed, and you see it all over Southeast Asia. So opening a capital account is something that is potentially dangerous. So that's why Chinese have not done it. And the second thing is the Chinese are also concerned about opening the market. Then the foreign banks will come in and dominate their market.
Right.
So the Chinese still have got work to do.
Is that protectionism mainly?
In financial matters,
Yes.
there is no protectionism under WTO. That is the one sector in which you can protect, largely because a financial crisis can completely torpedo a country.
For sure.
Yeah.
I understand.
So the Chinese potentially could displace the renminbi, but there are these other deregulation that they have to do.
Talk to me about the sophistication of the finance markets of China in maybe chasing the primacy of the Chinese yuan. For instance, I'm just wondering, if we were to take the financial hubs of New York and London, for instance, could Shanghai maybe one day stand to challenge some of these financial hubs?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think yes, it could, but the first thing that must happen to be a big financial hub is that people want to come use your bank. They want to come use your bank because they want to use your currency. So to be a great international financial center, the precondition is your currency must be an international currency.
Right.
Because then people want to use your currency, so they come use your banks. And because the important point here to note is what I saw, economies of scale. That means that if a banking sector is already very big, the cost of operating in that banking sector is lower than a small banking center like Singapore. Because New York is so much bigger that the cost of operating there is lower than Singapore. And so in the case of China, size is certainly not an issue in the future. It will get to that. But the question is so economies of scale is important. There's one important fact to realize is that if we believe in what I say about economies of scale, in the end, there should only be one currency. The biggest currency would outcompete the second currency.
Right.
So the biggest financial market should kill the second biggest financial market. So why is there London and New York? There should only be one if economies of scale is true.
Yeah.
The reason that it doesn't happen is because operating is because of geography. Operating at night is more expensive than operating in the day.
Okay.
So when it is, there's a long period of time when it's nighttime in London, daytime in New York.
Okay.
And the cost of New York is lower than in London at that point. So the transactions are in London. And then there is a time where it is nighttime in New York, but daytime in London.
Okay.
And the cost is lower. But there are places, there are times where both markets are closed. and that means there is place for a third international financial market. And where would that be? That would be in East Asia. It could be Singapore, it could be Sydney, could be Shanghai, could be Tokyo, could be Seoul. Now we know there's an opening. Is China destined to get that opening? Okay, it will depends on how fast China opens its market and to foreign financial institutions. Right now, they've kept them out. So the question is, now, why don't they open up? Because they say it's safety. We want to make sure that we have got all the right instruments in place, so if a crisis happens, we can handle it.
Yeah.
Until we are ready with our confidence to constrain a crisis, we're not going to open. So, how long do we have to wait? If the question is, the problem is China actually having a small window to do it. If it doesn't do it within that time, it will not be the third.
It's a missed opportunity.
And who would that missed opportunity go to? India. Oh. In terms of size, who matches China? It's India. So Bombay could be the threat to China, getting to be the third international financial center.
Does India fit the criteria of the volume and sophistication and safe and low inflation? Does it fit those criteria?
No, it doesn't yet.
Okay.
So they are both suffering from the same disadvantages.
Okay.
So whoever can get in shape faster will be able to grab that spot. And so all this talk about you got to reform gradually, but not too gradually. Largely because if the other guy succeeds before you, he would have established a foothold, and through economies of scale, you cannot catch up. So that is the challenge facing China.
Okay.
China should be able to promote its the use of renminbi quite quickly, because China is a net lender, not borrower.
Oh.
Since China is lending money, it can say, yes, I'll make loans, but the loans were in renminbi instead of making the loans in US dollar. Just like AIIB, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank that is that is headquartered in Beijing, is making most of its loans in US dollars, just like the Asian Development Bank. China could say, well, I'm lending money, but I want to be in yuan, and I charge a lower interest rate. And that would certainly promote the use of the renminbi.
It would boost the volume for sure.
Oh, of course. And there are not just one, it's not just AIIB, there's something called the New Development Bank. That is the bank of the BRICS.
Oh.
And that is going to rival the AIIB in size. So you could see that the Shanghai certainly has the ability to become very big and very quickly.
Okay.
Because right now, many of the Chinese companies are listing in Hong Kong.
Okay.
And just think, if China were to say, you can list it, you must now list it in Shanghai instead of Hong Kong. You could think of the big sucking sound that is heard.
It's the crowding in of money, of
and
trade.
Hong Kong is almost as big as New York and London in terms of international transactions. And that's all because of Chinese firms listing in Hong Kong.
Right.
And why are you in Hong Kong, not in Shanghai? Because Shanghai is not open.
Okay.
So when the Chinese do put out the welcome mat, they would be able to, to grow very quickly.
So I'm intrigued by this possibility of China really deciding to push this forward to make the Chinese yuan the global dominant currency. But let's talk about trust, Prof. Wu, because I think a large part of that also boils down to the trust in the currency itself. So how important is trust, especially in the rule of law that you've spoken about just now, in terms of building a global currency standing? And is that where you think China might stumble a little or fall down in that respect?
Well, before I answer the question, I want to congratulate you on your deep insight about the role of trust. Because at the back of the US dollar, it says, in God we trust. Rather than in gold we trust. In real life, you add an L to it, in gold we trust. But anyway, yes, that is something that China will have to earn.
Okay.
China will have to show that it has a judiciary system that is objective and a rule of law that treats everyone as equal. Until and unless China can achieve that trust by other people in its legal system, it'll be very hard for China to become to replace the US dollar.
Right.
But it doesn't have to replace dollar. It could still be a significant international currency. People will hold a composition of currencies.
Wow.
Dollar, yuan, euro, and who knows, the ringgit, hopefully, the future.
Do you think that's possible? So in a multipolar world, do you think that there will also be multi-currency world?
I think we will have a multi-currency world for a long time to come, even when China reaches its full size.
Wow.
Largely because the important thing in managing your wealth is diversification of risk. So you don't want to have everything in one basket.
Okay.
That's the fastest way to become a basket case.
Okay, but then let's think about it from the US's perspective. If that's the trajectory of the world, in a multipolar world, the trajectory is to have multiple global currencies and diversification to diversify risk. How would the US react to that? Because again, there's been a lot of talk about de-dollarization, and that is a significant fear for the US. We see that in Donald Trump's threats to BRICS and the like. How do you see that?
One thing for sure is that the US will have to stop seizing the assets of other countries that deposited in American banks.
Okay.
Because that reduces the safety of the dollar. It is able to do so now because of the lack of substitutes. When a substitute exists, we will find that the US will no longer be able to use the financial sector as a Cold War instrument.
Okay. Does the US stand to lose? How much ground does the US stand to lose if there are other dominant global currencies? And will the US take that lying down, do you think?
I think the US is not in a position to resist because US multinational firms will be the ones who would want to hold a portfolio of currencies. And given that US multinational corporations are the biggest political donors in the US political system, they would the government would certainly think for the safety of our economy, it is the right, the right policy stance to take. And in a way that is safer for U.S. businesses, because then they don't have to depend on one currency. And I think such that the U.S. is not a thing of would they be able to stop it. They would not. The only way they can stop it is if China does not grow to its potential, and hence the Chinese economy will not be so overwhelmingly big that people naturally have to use the renminbi.
Right.
So stopping the growth of China is not an easy task. And it is a task that is dangerous to the rest of the world, because the Chinese are certainly not going to take it lying down to have its right to develop blocked. And that would be highly dangerous for all of us bystanders.
Yes, that's right. Do you see that there has been a push away from the dollar because of Donald Trump's policies, hostile policies, I might say? In our last a few episodes, previously in an episode, we spoke about the weaponization of the dollar. Do you think that countries are moving away from trading with the dollar specifically because of Donald Trump's hostile policies?
For sure, because the U.S. had put up trade tariff. Trade tariff means that you buy less of the other guy's goods. And since you buy less of his goods, that means that you demand less of his currency. So a tariff should make the US dollar appreciate, because you don't have to trade so much dollars for his currency, because you want less of his currency. So a tariff should appreciate the US goods, US dollar. But the US dollar has depreciated by more than 10% since the beginning of this year.
Oh, wow.
And that is because people see that the US economy will be hurt, and inflation will go up. And because inflation go up, the Federal Reserve is not going to lower interest rate, most likely raise interest rate to fight inflation, and that will slow down the economy and hurt the profitability of firms. So you could see that the projected negative trajectory of the US economy has caused the dollar to depreciate, even though the tariffs by itself should be making the dollar go the other way.
That's right. Okay, so we spoke about the dollar and the possibility of the dollar being dethroned as the global currencies, the currency of the global order, and then the rise of the yuan, the Chinese yuan. But is there a possibility that there could be another challenger to this equation? There'd be murmurs of maybe a common currency amongst BRICS countries. Do you see that as a possibility, or is that quite far-fetched at this point in time?
If there's a BRICS currency, it will be heavily yuan-based.
Heavily yuan-based.
Because unless India emerges as much more quickly as an economic power, India, the rupee certainly has potential, but India will have to up its act in terms of economic performance. And I am also very optimistic about India, by the way.
Right.
I think you could see the potential of the economy. It has been the fastest growing economy for the last few years.
Yes.
So I'm very impressed about with the positive things that will happen in the future in both India and China.
This is a very interesting way that you've positioned, the challenger to the dollar and then now the challenger to the yuan. I actually find that so interesting. Prof, thank you so much for talking to us a little bit about this. This is really quite a fascinating topic, and it's really getting real about the US, China, and everything and everywhere in between. I'm Melisa Idris, and wrapping up this episode of Wu Says. I will see you in the next episode. Take care, folks. Till then.